something I take to heart and take pretty serious. As I told you, Andrew was the third one in Madison County to die since Christmas. And I feel like that if some of the other parents had stepped up, I might not have been where I was. And at the same situation, I had no idea that could kill you until I'm sitting in the emergency room and it's a little late. I want to say that before I got that phone call, I wasn't a very religious person. I believed in God. That was about as far as I went. And anyway, I had 4 days at the hospital with Andrew before he actually passed away. And that is the 4 worst days of my life. I don't want any other parents or brothers or sisters or anybody to go through what we went through. It's tough. There's nothing, when you grow up knowing that your parents are going to die before you and whatnot. You don't expect your kids to go before you. Anyway, I got sidetracked there for a second, but back to the religious side of it. My girlfriend bought me a Bible while I was in the hospital. First one I've ever had. And she brought it to me. And I sat it down, and I really didn't look at it for just a couple hours. I just made a comment telling her I wanted one, and she brought it. And without that single book, I probably wouldn't have made it out of the hospital alive, because Andrew is my only son in my world. But when I flipped it open, I turned to one verse that it stuck out to me. It was the very first one I read. And it's John 15:13, and it said, "Greater love hath no man than to lay down his life for his friends." And there's a reason I found that verse. And if all of you leave here today, you've listened to me, you know that it's dangerous. And I've carried on Andrew's word there. And also, before all this, you wouldn't have got me up in front of 2 people, let alone a group of people to talk, because I'm a pretty shy person. But God's been working in pretty wild ways. It was February 2011 that this happened, and we try to make at least one contact a week, or we try to go to at least one place a week and talk. Because if we talk to 5,000 people, if one person hears us, we're doing something. And like I said, you guys may not know about it. You also may not know it could kill you, and you do now. So. We always raced. Andrew loved racing. It was something we did together. And we decided that we weren't going to quit this year. I didn't want to race. I didn't want to do anything. I wanted to go home, lock the door, and never come out. But God pulled me out of that, and He had a 10-year-old give us a pretty cool idea about building a tribute car for Andrew. And that's our black car sitting out there. And we take it everywhere we go. And we call it racing for Andrew. It's not showing for Andrew or anything else. It's racing. So it doesn't look the greatest all the time, but we try hard. Kind of had a loss for words for a second here, but I don't know. I just don't. I'm gonna tell you, he had an older brother. And his brother was 18, and they were home together when it happened. And they were playing the Xbox together, and he left Corey's room and went to his room for just a couple of minutes, and Corey hollered at him for something, and he didn't answer. And Corey didn't think anything about it. He thought he was ignoring him. It's your 13-year-old brother, and he's just not going to answer you. And a couple minutes later goes by, and Corey walks in there, and Andrew's hanging from his bunk bed. Can you imagine how he feels today? Knowing that if he'd have walked in there maybe the first time he thought about it, things might have been different. You can't question God's will, but you can beat yourself up over things. And I can't imagine walking in his shoes every day. It's tougher than mine. I don't want any of you to have to experience that, because at 18 years old, you don't want to do CPR on your 13-year-old little brother. 2 weeks before his 14th birthday. God, I didn't have to go to that house that day. I didn't have to see what he saw. So it doesn't, it scares me when I think about it, but as far as visualizing it, I can't. God, and I have to say God did that. When I dropped Andrew off at school that morning, he said, "Dad, I love you. I'll see you tomorrow night." I had no idea that was the last thing he was going to say to me, but I'm real proud it was. Anyway, back to the racing. We race in Huntsville anywhere we can go to get the word out there. And we raced Huntsville a couple of times, and we never had any sponsors. Never had, we had family help with race cars and stuff, but we had somebody come to us that wanted to help us out, and they had an organization that we could work together on some things, and they're here to get us here today. It's the True Grace Foundation. But they decided they wanted to help us, and we appreciate it, and we moved on, and they came with us a couple of times, and I guess it was after the second race, Tim gets a phone call on the way home from the racetrack, and it's another story you're going to hear in just a second to go on. But anyway, her name is Drane. I'm going to let her come up here and tell you her side. And just listen and understand. I mean, this is coming from another teenager, and it can happen anywhere. You saw in the video, it's all over the place, all friends, it doesn't matter. I know since Andrew about a dozen kids have died across the U.S., and that's ridiculous, especially when we have the power to know. So, anyway, Destiny, Drane.
Thank you. I'm 16 now, but in 6th grade, I guess I was about 12. I just got a chance to be on my junior high cheerleading squad, and I walked in the locker room, and there was about 5 or 6 girls standing around, and they were in kind of a huddle, and I just kind of looked at them like, "What are you doing?" And they were like, come here, you've got to try this, we just all did it, it's fun. And I'm like, well, what is it? And they were like, it's just, you're just going to pass out for a second, and it feels really cool when you wake up. And I was like, does it hurt? And they, were just like, no. And I had never heard of this. I was like, okay. And I wasn't really accepted in the squad as well, and I figured if I said no, then they would push me away and not accept me. So I said yes, and I was like, okay, well, what do I do? And I was nervous because, I had surgeries before, been up to sleep and stuff, but passing out, I'd never heard of this at all, and I didn't know how long, I didn't know any of it. And they said, well, bend over 3 to 10 times and lean against the wall, and we'll push on your chest. Well, I bent over 3 to 10 times, and then I leaned against the wall, and one of the girls there had pushed on my chest, and that's the last thing I remember before waking up. I had a huddle, the girls were huddling over me, just saying my name and telling me to wake up, and I remember just kind of looking at them, and I was confused, and they were asking me if I was okay, and I'm just kind of looking at them like, why wouldn't I be? And then I started feeling pain all over, and just different parts of my body was hurting, and I finally sit up, and I sit on the bench, and the girls were just frantically, asking me if I was okay, and I was like, what happened, I had no clue. I just knew I was hurting, and that was it. And it was in the locker room, so there was a locker to my right, and the benches over here, and it was concrete. So one of the girls, or a couple of them, were telling me what happened, and they said that I had passed out a little longer than they expected, and I started having the shakes. I don't know the terminology of it all, but they just told me that I was shaking real bad, and I had hit the locker and fell on the ground, and me shaking.